Hey. So I just woke up and it's like 6 in the morning, which means I usually wouldn't be up for another like 4 hours, but something was happening in the air today. So I'm up, at 'em, and ready to go. So I found this article that was talking about previous epidemics and pandemics that happened to people, and I thought, what a better way to start this day. Disease. And I'll tell you all about it, but I need to have a coffee and an IV first. It was a random day on July 14th when a woman named Frau Trophia, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but she started dancing in the middle of the street randomly and she could not stop. So everyone was like, what is happening? And they all came out to watch her and she was just dancing, dancing, dancing. I'm adding this in right now because I forgot to mention that this actually happened in Strasbourg, France in 1518, which was like medieval Europe. So, and you might be thinking, oh, haha, that's fun. This woman is just dancing in the street for fun. But no, it was like the type of dancing where she was exhausted, she was sweaty, her feet were blistering and bloody. So after she was dancing for like a day straight, the rumor mill obviously started up and people were like, okay, maybe she's really angry at her husband, so she's trying to be obnoxious in the street and trying to dance around. Or people just thought she was absolutely nuts. But it became a little more concerning after a few more days of this non-stop dancing, and Frau was completely exhausted and she just collapsed. So obviously this couldn't have been just because she was mad at her husband. Clearly something else was happening because, again, when she woke up after she collapsed, she started dancing again. And it even came to a point where the police came around and was like, all right, what's happening? Because this is quite concerning. Then day 5 goes by and then day 6, and at this point people were basically just terrified as to what was going on, and they started spreading rumors that she was probably cursed by some devilish spirit who was punishing her for something that she did. Keeping in mind that 1500s Europe was predominantly Christian Catholic, so it was obviously the number one reason to blame a spirit if something was going completely unexplainably wrong. And this is when the council of the town decided to blame Frau's uncontrollable curse dancing on something called the Vengeful Saint. And this saint was thought to be a saint named Saint Vitus. So he was known to be a Christian martyr back in the day, and he was also known to be a part of something called the 14 Holy Helpers. But basically, there were these saints who were known to protect or keep their people away from weird or terrifying diseases. So, yeah. And I don't know where this theory came from, but apparently when Saint Vitus died, the townspeople built a huge statue and had feasts and partied around his statue, and because everyone was like, this is great, the dancing is so fun, his name was inherently related to dancing. And because Frau was dancing in the street, they thought this must be the work of Saint Vitus. There was, I guess, a theory that even if the saints used to be healers, that they could reverse heal and cause extreme damage where they wanted to. Where? What? Really, I have no freaking idea. But I guess that was the most reasonable answer that they landed on. But because they were dealing with a saint and probably a lot of bad juju, the council people were like, all right, something spiritual has to be done about the situation. So on the 6th day of Frau's uncontrollable dancing, they literally threw her in a wagon and took her to a place called the Savern. And I guess this was where they were gonna do some ritualistic cleansing of some sort. There isn't really a lot of record of what really happened at the Savern, but we could assume that it was probably some type of exorcism or blessing. And that was the very first case of what we now know as the dancing epidemic of 1518. Also, out of all things that could kill me in this world, if a demon was trying to get me, how is it fair that you can get killed by something you can't even see? It's game over without even being started. So literally, what the heck happened? So something that's more commonly known as uncontrollable or unexpected movement is called chorea. But now it is a symptom for many other disorders and diseases that we know today. So only a few days after Frau Trophia came back from the Savern, she found that 34 people in her town was going through the exact same dancing craze that she had been going through for the past week. And it literally became a raging epidemic within the next few days. As more people started to freak out about the dancing plague, the more people became affected by it. And by August, an upwards of 400 people were dancing crazily in the streets.
Like, if St. Vitus wanted to plague, 1 to 2 people, alright, I would understand, but I don't see it being very likely that he would want to plague 400 people at a time. I'm sure he has a lot of things to do, and that just isn't one of them.
And the scene, I can imagine, was only absolutely horrendous. 400 people in the streets dancing in the middle of the summer. It's so hot. People are bloody, their feet are bruised, people passing out from exhaustion on the sides. It was just utter chaos. And this is literally the best part. The town leaders were so appalled as to what was happening that they literally built a stage and brought in professional backup dancers to dance along with these people. People are in a state of panic, and the best thing that you could do for them was bring in a prima donna to dance it up with them. What? Oh, but it gets better. On top of the background dancers and the stage, they hired bands to come play music for the people who were dancing.
When they ask you how you are, and you just have to say you're fine when you're not really fine.
And after many days of the stage, background dancers, and music, it clearly continued to be a really bad problem because people were suddenly collapsing, having heart attacks and strokes from the continuous exhaustion and dancing. So when I was reading about this event, there actually wasn't any record of what ended the dancing plague. It was kind of just by September it subdued and everyone just kind of stopped dancing. So, but now after a month and a half of just non-stop crazy dancing, people are okay, seriously, what the heck happened? So now I'm gonna go into a few theories that I found. So the first theory is food poisoning. So people who are looking into what might have happened landed on ergot fungi. So basically, ergot is a type of fungus that grows on rye and other plants and has the potential to be very toxic to humans. Rye being a common ingredient in bread means one bad batch could have easily led the whole town to. Ergot is also known to have a similar chemical structure to lysergic acid diethalymide, which is also known as the common psychedelic street drug, LSD. And the effects of ergot can be spasms, convulsions, and even death. So this is a pretty good theory until it's not. Well, for one, if you did have food poisoning, you probably wouldn't be affected by it for upwards of 7 days. It would probably just get out of your system within 24 hours. And the second reason is that not everyone reacts to chemicals in the same way. For example, when people drink alcohol, not everyone gets the same amount of drunk with the same amount of alcohol. It's very different for everyone. And in this case, it would be nearly impossible to see 400 people act in the exact same way. So don't worry, we can still eat bread. So the next theory, which is the main theory that is commonly accepted, was made by John Waller. So John Waller is the author of many books surrounding the 1500s dancing plague. John Waller obviously went into crazy details about the religious background and other theories that might have caused this dancing mania, but basically his main explanation about what could have possibly happened was something called a mass psychogenic disorder, which happened because of people's utter terror and panic.
I love making these videos because it gives me an excuse to bring out my trusty thesaurus, the secretary's desk book. What I find really interesting about this case is that usually when we hear epidemic or pandemic, we think of something that has to do with viral infections or, physical illness, but this has to do a lot more with psychology. Because even if the psychogenic episode causes people to have physical injury, there's actually no underlying physical or environmental reason as to why they should be, acting up. And this article that I found on the National Library of Medicine, written by Eric Coir, perfectly describes the background of sociogenic illness. And this is where she wrote that one cohesive group of people experience a neurological disturbance due to extreme anxiety caused by an external threat. And in this case, we know that the source of anxiety for the town of Strasbourg was probably the fear of St. Beatus or some other type of major satanic panic. But this very clearly shows the social and cultural beliefs of their time. If you can hear little meows. Oreo! Oreo thinks this subject is really cool. I'm sorry.
Psychogenic illnesses are known to involve movement disorders, but there's actually still no medical explanation as to why these random movements are happening. But even if we don't know, I do still agree with John Waller that this was probably one of the most reasonable explanations about what happened. And as crazy as it seems, the 1518 Strasbourg epidemic was not the only time that the dancing plague came around. There are so many more books and stories that have similar events like the dancing plague of 1518, but I'm gonna go take a nap. It'll be another time. Okay, bye. Thank you.